let me start by saying that, in our company we run a Mastech Foundation, which does a lot of work with the financially excluded people. And, just to give a perspective that we talk of financially including them, is it really their priority to get financially included? We all think that, oh, we want to include them financially. But you'll be surprised to note that, getting financially included probably doesn't figure in the top 20 things that they want to do. Okay. And the kind of things which figure in the top 20 are, things like new clothes for their kids are more important to them than getting financially included. Okay. So how do we change that particular thing? What are the drivers which will sort of create a drive that they themselves want to get financially included? So there is a drive from the people who are excluded to get financially included. It is not only from the technology service providers or the financial service providers who are trying to get them included, or almost forcing them to get financially included. Okay. So that is why, we have to step one step back and see how can we create drivers for them to actually push to get into this whole financial inclusion space. Okay. So I'm going to take a little different perspective that, we always feel that banks and financial service providers are supposed to drive financial inclusion. But the drivers for actually the people who are excluded to come into the financial inclusion net are the government departments like Social Justice and Empowerment Department, who gives out lots of schemes, scholarships, etc. Now, if we can create a system where for people to avail of these benefits from these various departments, they have to in some way or the other come into the financial inclusion space, then the drive will also be from that particular population which is excluded to start coming into this financially included space. So there are various departments, which have to create those drivers for that population where they start pushing. So for example, like I've just listed some of these, there is a women and child welfare department today in most of the states. There are specific departments which are catering to the various tribal populations in most of the states. The whole NREGA scheme, which is being rolled out already very successfully in various states. There are specific departments which are focusing on minority rights and on. So if these departments, which are actually catering to almost 90% of the customer base, if you can call it, of these departments, is the financially excluded people. If these departments can create drivers for those people to push themselves into the financial inclusion space, only then this whole inclusion process is going to be successful. Otherwise, if the drive is only from the financial service providers like banks or insurance companies, or also only from the technology service providers, it is not going to be successful, because the customer whom you want to come into the inclusion space, he really doesn't want to come into, he doesn't have the drivers. So you're almost forcing him. Okay. So we'll have to focus on how these departments can create those drivers, and then pull those people into the financial inclusion space rather than pushing them into the financial inclusion space. So we'll just see what these departments can do and how ICT can help them create those drivers. So to create the fundamental reason for this excluded population to come into the inclusion space. So the first thing is that if you see, most of these departments run a wide variety of welfare schemes, almost all of them targeted to the financially excluded population. Okay. Across these 5 or 6 departments, and there are many more, there is agriculture, which dishes out agricultural loans, Kisan credit cards, so on and so forth. Across these 6 or 7 departments, in any state, they are running almost more than 1,000 plus schemes for various kinds of people, various subsections of the population, various cross slices and dices of the population. So how can these schemes have a much more wider coverage in this population? Today, these schemes run by all these departments are facing a problem of coverage, that they cannot go and create enough coverage in this financially excluded population. Because they cannot create enough coverage, they cannot pull enough people into the inclusion space. So how can technology help in addressing this wide coverage problem? So one, you can have the awareness is itself a problem. So today mobiles are very widespread. Can we run viral campaigns on mobile which sort of get these people to understand these schemes, try and avail of these schemes, and then hence come into the financially included space? The federated registration process for most of these schemes, like if you have seen the whole UID program, which is running a very federated registration process. Today, most of these schemes run a centralized registration process. It may be happening at multiple locations, but it is happening through a single agency. So just running it at multiple locations doesn't make it a federated process. So using technology, can we create a federated registration process which helps get a wider coverage for most of these schemes? The whole ease of access, I mean, in Gujarat, I heard a lot about the one-day governance program. So can we extend this to not only the cities and the urban centers, but also to those parts of the states where the access is not there? So can we have a one and done kind of process where in one step the whole coverage for the individual or the family or the community is ensured? The cultural and psychological barriers, these are big barriers to getting the coverage, getting the excluded population to access these various schemes and hence come into the inclusion space. So can we use like business correspondents or VLEs which were just mentioned, because they are culturally more closer to this excluded population, they can convince them better, they can make them feel more comfortable and then get them to participate in these various schemes and hence come into the inclusion space. Gujarat is running or trying to run a program of M-governance, so where it is not, because like we know today everybody is comfortable with mobile, okay. So, and even in M-governance, can this be extended to voice? Because if you see, 90% of the people are comfortable using mobiles for only voice, okay, not really for anything else, especially in this excluded segment of the population. So can we, explore various technologies where using just voice, these people can participate in all these schemes and, then get into the inclusion space. The next thing which is important is, of course, the targeted systems, because today what is happening is all these schemes are being run, but the targeting which is being done is not sharp, and hence most of the population which these schemes are supposed to reach, they are aware, but they cannot. They have the access, but somehow they are not falling into those nets. So today states have multiple systems and multiple databases, and can we have targeted systems which cross-reference across all these systems and databases to figure out exactly which people you need to go and catch and bring them into these schemes and hence into the inclusion space. Okay. To just give you an example, a lot of states run scholarships for students who have passed a certain, say the matriculation exam or the class 12 and have secured certain percentages and are from certain socially backward groups, etc., etc. Now, all this data is lying across multiple databases, and how, you can have technology interact with, because one part of the data will be with the education department, one will be with the social justice department, one may be with the urban development department, because they are also supposed to live in a slum. So how can we correlate all this data using technology very easily and hence target people much more smoothly and in a streamlined manner? Infrastructure readiness, of course, is important for doing this wide coverage. The connectivity, the CSCs.
Vidyesh, 1 more minute to wrap it up.
Sure. Yeah. And localized solutions, so multilingual solutions, of course, are the norm. Various accessibilities for even the various kinds of people who are, like I said, voice is a key to ensuring accessibility. Now, like we understood, there are these key needs which need to be serviced to ensure that this excluded population takes part in all these various schemes, which will form the drivers for them to push to get to open a bank account or to take an insurance policy or whatever. Yeah. So how can technology help in the delivery of these key needs? Okay. So we said like targeting and sharp identification of beneficiaries, so we have solutions around deduplication. The technology vendors and the technology companies have solutions around identity management. I mean, the whole UID framework which is coming up is a solution around just identity management. Okay. Expedited registration and approval, we spoke about one and done, how ease of access, how things can happen in one step, because the excluded people can't really take a leave from their office and come and do their work. They are on almost a daily kind of payroll. We can have better workflow systems, distributed systems, federated systems which can handle this. The calculation of the benefits, how much is exact, because people are availing of multiple schemes, so you can have various rule engine based systems which can help you calculate benefits properly. Instant dispersal, either through banks or through business correspondents, or even in kind, various dispersals in kind, how they can be managed. And delivery and payment at doorsteps through handhelds and biometrics and so on. So these are the various technology specific, access which can help deliver these key needs. And if we are able to do this and deliver these schemes of these various welfare departments to the excluded population, I'm sure that the excluded population will create such a huge push for getting into the inclusion space. And only that will make the efforts of insurance companies or banks or technology companies successful in getting them into the inclusion space. Yeah.
Vidyesh, we'll have no time for questions. No, just try to wrap it. Huh? That's all?
Yeah.
Thank you.